This is the first of 4 videos that we will post. Each video will represent one of the modules in the EDAP 688 class. There are 4 modules that cover the content of developing curricular that is integrated with technology. And as you can see, we're going to start today with TPAC and SAMR. The second module is all about understanding by design, the Wiggins and McTeague dies. And the third module is universal design for learning. And finally, we will be looking at the Pedagogy 2.0 tools for integrating technology into your instruction. This is a fairly simple class, but it is a very busy class. The hat will be you creating 5 lessons using the short lesson plan format created by Understanding by Design, Wiggins and McTeague. That is Grant Wiggins and J. McTeague. So, let's go back up here and let's start. When we talk about TPAC and SAMR, and the question can be asked, why do you put these two together other than you just want to put them together? There is a real reason. TPAC represents a theoretical examination of technology integrated into instruction, research-based. SAMR is much more a practitioner look at how technology is used in the classroom and in schools. And so when I put these two together, what I'm trying to show you is the 2 different ways that people examine how technology can be integrated into a classroom and into a school. So when we look at TPAC, the framework, it's an acronym that stands for Technology, Pedagogy, Content, Knowledge, and how they interact with each other. It is been around for a while now, and it is based upon solid research by a gentleman by the name of Lee Schulman, who basically describes it, or excuse me, the 2 gentlemen who have created TPAC, and that is Mishra Punya and Matt Kohler, have described it as a wicked problem. When we look at what the wicked problem means, it's not just a cute phrase, it's an actual term from sociology, and refers to requirements are incomplete, contradictory, and changing. Unique, no 2 wicked problems are the same. Solutions are difficult to realize, and solutions are not right or wrong, and solutions do not have stopping rules. This is so much a description of what we in education deal with almost on a daily basis. But in this particular case, the integrating of technology as a wicked problem has to do primarily with the nature of technology, that it is ever changing. Here is your required John Dewey quote. If we teach today as we teach yesterday, then we rob our children of tomorrow. These are the ISTE standards for teachers using technology. And as you can see, some of these are pretty intimidating for most teachers to have to work with. Where does this all come from? Why do we deal with this? So let's let the people who created all this begin the conversation. This is going to be Mishra Punya. He is speaking at a presentation where he and Matt basically introduced TPAC.
process going from writing to print. Here I want to quote from Victor Hugo, who argued that in his book, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, that this will destroy that. But this was the book, and that was the cathedral. The book will destroy the cathedral, because a medium that is now shareable by millions of people with print means that nobody's going to go to a certain specific place to get wisdom or knowledge, that it is shareable. And if you think about post-Gutenberg, we had the Reformation, the American and French revolutions, and a large part of it was dependent on the fact that the large masses of people could now get information that they could check on their own. So Hugo speaks to this connection between technology and content when he says, and I'm going to quote just a part of it, the dominant idea of each generation would in future be embodied in new material. Think about that for a second and look at the picture that Matt just sent me. That a new material, that of the digital computer, changes things. And so we went from clay to papyrus, to scrolls, to handwritten text, printed and lead type, mass-produced books, and now we are at the age of the Kindle and the e-book, and of course we live now in a world of links and hypertext. And so technology not just changes practices, but it also changes society. So technology and content have always been related in very complex ways. I think that's sort of the message to take away from this part. So that ends this example. Moving on.
So what we're trying to get at here is that technology always changes our culture. Always has. And it has nothing to do necessarily with computers and schools, but it has to do with the idea that technology is everywhere, that technology is always moving forward, and it pushes culture to do the same. We see it all around us right now. We see it in self-driving cars. We see it in smart homes. We see it in the next generation of teaching tools, which is starting to look more and more about virtual reality. I've seen virtual reality demonstrated by Tierney Brothers, a product that they carry called Zscape, and it is quite remarkable. I don't know where it is going. I can see how it would work in some niche areas like anatomy and physiology. I don't know how it would, and possibly mathematics. I don't see how it would work in, say, social studies or language arts. But it's always there pushing us. Now let's go through these letters in the acronym real fast. So we have content. So content knowledge is essentially what it is that you need to know to be able to teach about it. And I don't think it's an overstatement to say that technology use in a classroom cannot exist in a classroom where the person who is the teacher does not have an understanding of their content. It just doesn't happen. And that's true about everything in teaching. If you don't understand your content, you really can't manage your classroom because you're constantly trying to figure out what you're going to say and how the classroom is going to work. And if you're trying to do that, then you're not able to have a coherent class. Now, one of the things that I find kind of ironic is people who are beginning teachers, K-tip teachers, we call them, and or student teachers are required to demonstrate the use of technology. And basically what I've just said here is, if you're not really adept in your content, if you don't know it stone cold, then you really can't even begin to understand technology's place in that process. Pedagogy is pedagogy. Pedagogy is the how of teaching. This is one of those things that we really don't pay enough attention to. When I go in and I K-tip quite a few people during school year, one of the things I'm always watching for is something that Schulman calls the pedagogical slide, and we'll get to that here in just a second. And when we consider the relationship between content and pedagogy, the key question is always, how does disciplines differ from each other, and whether disciplines can or should be taught through the same instructional strategies? Now, I would argue that this also relates to not necessarily disciplines, but also to content that you're teaching. There are some content that have to be taught using a different pedagogy than when you are asking kids to do other things with the content. And you see this with good teachers. They will slide in and out of lecture. They'll have group work collaborative. They will have kids do their own thinking, you-dos, etc., that represent inquiry. You see this in good teaching all the time, this ability to slide in and out of different pedagogies based upon what it is that you're trying to teach. Technology comes along and it says that it fits into this. By the way, this was all created, like as I have said before, by Lee Shulman, 1987. Those who understand knowledge growth and teaching. Shulman is a Grawemeyer Award winner from the University of Louisville. His face is up there out in the hallway if you ever want to come by and see what he looked like. But the thing that is so interesting is that a very simple quote, and this is taken from his book, and I find this probably the most important quote he has in there. If those preconceptions are misconceptions, which they so often are, teachers need knowledge of strategies most likely to be fruitful in reorganizing the understanding of learners, because those learners are unlikely to appear before them as blank slates. Boy, do you ever see this in a kindergarten class. When you're sitting in a kindergarten class and kids are first learning letter sounds or just even the names of letters, they come in with information that is either incomplete or is information that is just flat wrong, or they come in with no information whatsoever. And it's fun to watch because it's so evident. Now, as you go up in grades, kids become a little more sophisticated and nuanced in the way that they deal with this inability to bring any prior knowledge to the task. And again, when I watch those kids, and you see that a lot in mathematics. I was watching a K-tip teacher this week, middle school, working with a group of kids, ADHD kids, severe ADHD kids, trying to teach them mathematics equations with two variables. The thing that was fascinating, and it was great to watch when she did that, was how many different pedagogies she was sliding in and out of with the various aspects of the content, so that kids could explore how she was asking them to solve problems with multiple variables. This is a cute little cartoon where it says, I ask my catering students to take everything with a grain of salt, and with my plasters I lay it on with a trowel. Well, the point of this is we should be looking at the idea that pedagogies, there's never one pedagogy. Unfortunately, in college and in a lot of high school, there is just one pedagogy, and it's called lecture. Now let's look at technology. So here we have Shulman's work from '87. And then what Matt and Mishra try to do is they try to figure out, how does technology now fit into this? The technology becomes a part, and I would argue it becomes a part through the use of technology as a pedagogy to support content, or technology to support various kinds of pedagogies in support of content. I think that makes more sense than just keeping it as this little ball as they do, because what we're trying to show here is there are times when you don't use technology, because the pedagogy doesn't require it. And there are times when we need technology. And what is technology? Is it a computer for every kid? Is it an iPad for every kid? This lady who was teaching an amazing lesson was using a technology. It was called a rollable whiteboard. She had a whiteboard that was on wheels. And it was about 3 by 3 feet. And with this group of ADHD kids, what she could do is literally roll that thing up to a group of 2 or 3 of them who were struggling with what she was trying to do and show it to them and allow them then to respond. That's technology. And that's TPAC, because the technology was supporting the pedagogy, that was supporting the understanding of the content. And as you can see here, the understanding goes beyond the knowledge of each in isolation. Instead, it is how they interact with each other. This is a teacher's viewpoint here, not kids. And so what we're saying here is, if we can get teachers to think about how technology supports that interaction between content and pedagogy, as opposed to an add-on, one more thing to try to figure out. This is a slide that on the left-hand side, this is what Schulman says in an article written by Grossman. And basically what they're saying here is that knowledge of curriculum and curriculum materials with learning and teaching subject matter topics, this is how we would see the PCK, how we would see the pedagogical slide. And over here under TPAC, we see all of that, but we see how then that technology is integrated. So here are the challenges. So then the question becomes, is this impossible to do? No. It is a wicked problem. It certainly is, but it is not impossible to do, because wicked problems require creative solutions. And creativity is seen as novelty, but novelty must be joined to purpose. Why do we do cool things in our classroom? And that might, it could be something that has nothing to do with technology. You might bring in balloons to teach about Newton's laws. You might allow kids to dress up in costumes that would reflect what you're studying in the historical period. But novelty must always be joined to purpose. Their acronym for this is Novel, Effective, and Whole, otherwise known as NEW. And as we look at what effective means, is that it has a purpose, it's useful, it's simple, it's sensible, it's necessary. And then the whole, the gestalt, how everything hangs together. And you can see that so clearly when you watch someone teach who is really knowledgeable about their content and comfortable enough then to do these slides in and out of different pedagogies, and then seamlessly, effortlessly bringing in technology. Now, it can be technology that they employ to help kids see a bigger picture, or it might be technology they employ by allowing kids to take the content and develop their understandings of it. Let's watch another piece out of the presentation the guys did.
When I see it, that's one way of thinking about it, because creativity is often easy to recognize and hard to define. And if you see that quote that Matt has, Justice Potter Stewart, was actually how Justice Stewart defined pornography in the Supreme Court decision. That I know it when I see it, and creativity in some ways is like that. But it seems to us that we ought to do that. So I'm going to share with you some examples of creativity. Example one, it's a fantastic social innovation, which I think is going to have a huge educational payoff in the future. And this is Muhammad Yunus, Nobel Peace Prize winner 2 years ago, and the inventor of the idea of the microcredit. I don't know how many of you know about the microcredit. These are small loans that are given to people in villages, typically $15, $20. The return rate on these investments is much better than loans that typically banks have been giving. And these people use these to set up their own little shop or some kind of a store or something like that. And here's the woman who has received that loan, and you can see the kids.
I'm going to jump back in here because I think he kind of wanders off into an area that really doesn't make too much sense. He kind of loses his own demonstration of what he's talking about here. So let me jump back in. So when we look at the use of technology in the classroom, I have lots of examples here. I'm not going to run them all by you, just to give you an idea of what some of them were. So a group of kids at Bick Elementary developed their own ballads about an aspect of Kentucky history. They recorded those using GarageBand. And the thing that I found so fascinating about it was that the kids dug so deeply into their understandings about the historical background that they were writing about and then creating the songs for. They did very little copying, very little. And it was kind of funny because most of the songs that came out were very hip-hoppy, very rappy. And so it wasn't necessarily the structure of the ballad. And the teacher had to make a decision. Was she going to allow for this? Was the lesson about the structure of what that type of song was? She decided that the structure was about that this song was used to tell stories, and it was used as a way to communicate ideas along the frontier. And she then said, however the kids want to interpret that, then it's fine with me. I thought it was a smart move, because then I think we would have lost everybody. Here's where we now move into the idea of how does technology really fit into all this. They call it the tweaking of the knobs. And when they refer to this, they're talking about affordances, and you know what an affordance is. It's something that allows something else to happen, that teachers create through, and I cannot emphasize this next part, playful interaction with their curriculum. We talk about knobs all the time. We talk about knobs in the sense that we use wiki spaces as a way to build out a presence onto the internet, into the web, into the world. We talk about using knobs to create content that kids can watch and interact with, like in VoiceThread. We use knobs that can create, again, content that when kids watch it, it reminds them of the things that they really like watching, like cartoons and movies. We talk about it when we talk about using knobs to create actual stories and books that are full of pictures. And we know that picture books are one of the most important ways as young learners that we learn things. And it's funny, we kind of set the whole picture book idea aside all through the upper grades, through high school, and we don't pick it up again until we get into social studies, where there are tons and tons of pictures in the textbooks. And when you go to medical school, your textbooks are nothing but tons and tons of pictures. It's interesting how we lose that idea about the picture being a part of the teaching when we have text. let's go through the last part of this. And what I'm showing you here is how teachers come to the TPAC process. Teachers are able to use technology and understand how it could be used for subject matter, but do not integrate it. In other words, they've gone to the PD at Jaeger and sat there for whatever it is now. Or they've gone online and done the same thing. We move from that to understanding what is possible, but because of interactions they've had or the frustrations they've had, at this point, this is the tipping point. Teachers can recognize that it is a skill, but if they have a favorable or unfavorable attitude, that will then basically decide how they're going to interact with all this going forward. And so it is one of the most frustrating things that we can do, because if we have a favorable attitude, we implement tech in our classroom. And then if they understand intuitively the idea of the pedagogical slide, then they understand that the different technologies can be used differently to teach different aspects of the content. And then we get to the top, which is frankly where we go in a lot of the courses that I teach. And that is teachers actively develop and integrate technology, designing their own ideas and putting it into their instruction. And then finally we have what we always have when we talk about teaching, and that is reflection and change. And that is teachers make revisions in the curriculum as technology capabilities come along. And then they evaluate the results and decide, just like you do with anything, and as a good teacher, what things work and what things do not work. And so what we have here is the ability to understand that we have to understand how technology is much more different than knowing what to do with it in instructional purposes. Anybody can learn how to use a smartboard. There are tons and tons of PDs that are offered. Anybody can learn how to use an iPad. Again, tons and tons of PD that are offered for it. But what do you do with it? What do you do with it? And this is where we get hung up. We have to have the next thing. Designing or redesigning instruction requires an understanding of how knowledge about content, pedagogy, and technology overlap to inform your choices for curriculum and instruction. And so what is TPAC? To put it simply, TPAC is understanding your content, understanding how pedagogy changes depending upon what you are trying to teach in that content. And then the technology is the last piece that comes in that says, let's use this technology within this pedagogy to understand this part of my technology. This is a pretty good model here that basically sort of takes that circle thing and blows it out. This is, and by the way, this PowerPoint is in this module. I would use this as I am thinking about the assignment for this module, because there's an awful lot of good wordage here, and I would certainly steal it and use it in my infographic that is we're going to ask you to make. So here's the question. How can you best use new technologies associated with your content objectives to promote student learning? That's it. You know, if we can get people who do all these technology resource PDs to simply address that simple question, I think those PDs would actually have some meaning to them, instead of it all just being focused on turn this, tap this, hold this, point at that. And then here's the question. So how do we think about pedagogy, and how do we then think about the technologies we use that support that? Here is an example of how it can be done with language arts as a lesson planner. And as you can see, we basically start with what's the standard, and how are we going to do this, and then what pedagogy are we going to do, and then how does the technology over here, which is iPad, iMovie, or a Movie Maker for your Windows, and you see down here under the pedagogy all the different things that they're going to do. And that is TPAC. As I said, there in the module, there are all of the videos that I just kind of gave a wave and a pass to, that if you want to watch them all, you can. And I have them right here. So this is the entire presentation that Matt and Mishra did together. So if you want to watch it, you can. But I think what I've just done with you does a pretty good job of helping you understand what this is about. Now, I'm going to pause for a second here and kind of get things a little bit organized. And then we'll come back and take a look then at how we're going to use the resources in this module to do a demonstration of your understanding of what TPAC is. So let's go back to the module at the top level, and let's look at what we're going to be asked to do as far as TPAC goes as a standalone. And as you can see down here, one of the things that we're being asked to do is to choose a TPAC lesson from the TPAC Wiki, which is located here. We're asking you to embed it into your live text and complete the TPAC observation instrument. It also will be there in the live text for you to fill out. So really what you're going to have to do to show a demonstration of this is follow this link here and go and look at, and my goodness gracious, there's a whole lot of videos in there. Find one which you think does the best job of TPAC integration, and use the, as I said, the template there. Please ignore these right here. In fact, one of the things I will do is take these out. This is unnecessary. I've had lots of students tell me that they don't need this to find what they have to do in live text. So let's look at the TPAC portion of this, and then we'll come back around and we'll talk about SAMR, and then we'll look at the Pictochart piece of this, and then we'll be finished. So if I follow here in the top level of the module, I'm at the top level here in Module 1, there is a link that will take me to the TPAC College of Education's page. What I'm asking you to do in this particular instance is to scroll down to the bottom. As you can see, once again, here's the presentation by the guys. And down here are a series of videos demonstrating different kinds of classrooms using different kinds of technology. What I want you to think about is, as you're watching these, which one of these do you think does, in your mind, the best job of teaching using technology? Now, there is right here the observation instrument that you're going to fill out, and that's located in the live text assignment, and we'll look at that here in just a second. I just want to show you how you can do this. Well, first of all, you know how to do it. I'm going to take this and I'm going to click on the triangle to play it, which allows me then to watch this example. What I need to do is basically I can copy the video URL just by right-clicking on it. And once I've done that, then over in the assignment, I can paste it into the assignment and then fill out the observation instrument below it. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this. So let's review. Once again, it's located in this link right here. You go to the page. You have to scroll down a while. By the way, that's what Mishra looks like. And you will find all of these examples at the bottom. And you're going to look at them and decide which ones you think do the job of demonstrating TPAC. And since I'm talking about it, let's jump to the live text so that you can see how all this kind of gets done. So in our live text here, we only have 2 assignments, but within one of the assignments are the 4 modules that we will be doing this for this course. And as you can see, it's called Reflective Papers. I'm going to click on that. And when I do, it basically tells me that I am going to have to complete 3 of these. And I'm going to open it up. And as you can see, the modules are reflected within this one assignment. So the thing you have to be careful about is do not save and finish when you complete one of these, because if you do, it'll get turned in. You always want to just save it. Now, so how does it work? Well, so for this first example, the first thing it wants us to do, in the directions, it talks about doing an infographic, and we'll get to that here in just a minute. But for what we just went through, here it is, and it says, okay, so give me the URL of the lesson that you think is the best from the videos that you watched. So I'm going to go ahead and do just that. There it is. Then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to start filling in the information. So in other words, what I saw in that lesson, what was the primary learning goals that I thought was going on there? In other words, what was the content that the teacher was trying to teach? Then when we get down here into, we can talk about what do you know about anything that you observed in the lessons. Did you get a sense of student learning needs? Did you get a sense of any technologies that were being used? In other words, what was happening that might affect how the TPAC would be implemented? And then finally down here, this is where you're actually going to go through and look at the different pieces of the TPAC, and you're going to identify how you think they were reflected in that lesson. Now, the way you do that is very simple. You can just come in here and you can highlight the one goal that you think it is and just give it a change it to a bold or an italics, either one. And that way then when I go in and look at it, I can see that this is how you think using curricular goals and technology, this was a 4. In other words, it was the highest that it could be. Okay. When you get finished, as I said, make sure you save your changes. Do not save and finish until we get to the end. Just save your changes. Now I'll go ahead and cancel this so I don't mess up what I've got in here. Let's jump back to where we were, and let's move on to the second part of Module 1. and that is SAMR. SAMR is extremely simple to understand. And one of the things that I like about SAMR is it is very practitioner based. I'm going to let you watch this little video because it does as good a job as anything I could run by you. Remember, SAMR is not a research theoretical based idea. I'm sure that Ruben would be a little upset with me saying that. And there are people out there who are trying to figure out how to get data together that would demonstrate what SAMR, how it works and means. But it's really just an idea around how do we see technology being used in classrooms. So let's go ahead and give this a play.
This is the SAMR model in 120 seconds. The SAMR model is a framework that provides a lens for viewing technology integration in the classroom. The first level is substitution, or the idea that a block is a block no matter where it is or how you access it. This would be like using Google Docs as any other word processor. The new tech replaces the old tech, but it does not change the task. The next level is augmentation. At this level, the tech is still a substitute, but provides more functionality as students work to complete the same task. The ability to share your Google Doc in one click and the fact that it saves to the cloud automatically and provides you access from anywhere is an increase in functionality. The next level is modification. Here the ball really gets rolling because the technology is used to redesign parts of the task and transform student learning. Students collaborating on one Google Doc and using the comment feature to provide instant feedback is an example of modification. The final level of SAMR is redefinition. At this level, we're able to design and create new tasks that were once unimaginable. By shifting our perspective from technology just being another block or substitute, we're able to truly start imagining the possibilities. An example of redefinition would be connecting to a classroom across the world through students sharing Google Docs. They would each write their own narrative of the same historical event, using the chat and comment section to discuss the differences. Then students would use the Voice Comments app to discuss the differences they noticed and embed this in their class website as a culture walk. To recap, substitution is the same task, new tech replaces old tech. Augmentation is the same task, but the tech increases functionality. Modification, we're able to redesign parts of the task. Redefinition, we're able to create new tasks once unimaginable. As we move from substitution to redefinition, we're moving from enhancing to transforming student learning.
That is about as succinct an explanation as I have ever seen about SAMR. I think it's one of those things that as teachers in schools, we can really readily wrap our heads around. Substitution is nothing more than the same task we've always done, but now we're applying technology to it to do that task in a different way. Augmentation actually allows you to do the task with some extra features added to it. And I love her use of Google Docs as a way of demonstrating this. Modification basically says, how can we now take this original task, word processing, and modify it in new and different ways? And redefinition says, how do you take the idea of word processing and redefine what that can mean? Very straightforward, very simple. And as I said, I have seen, and here's the model down here, I have seen this being offered in JCPS in other school districts as a way of looking at how technology can be used in the school. This assignment is asking you to take a look at the SAMR model and the TPAC model and trying to make sense of them using something called a pictochart. Now, a pictochart is a way of taking, sorry about that, is a way of taking disparate pieces of information and putting them all together to form a new idea. To get to Pictochart, you're going to use my username, my email username, I should say, sbswan02@louisville.edu with a password of ULIT241, all lowercase, all one word. Go ahead and sign in. And the beauty of it is you are now ready to create your own infographic. Now what's neat here is, as you can see, is this is used by teachers with lots and lots of kids. And I hope that you will feel like that you can bring your kids in here. Using my username and password is not going to lead to any major disasters. I have, that password is only used for this kind of thing. And, you know, I regularly go in here and check it out. Hey, look here. We've got someone's work. Let's take a look at this. So TPAC and SAMR together is one framework. And so basically what this particular person did is they went through and gave their ideas about how they see the two of them working together, what's different though about them as well. This is a really nice example. You start with finding either you can start with, well, you can start with an infographic, but you can start with a blank palette like this one, or you can use the free or the pro templates, either one. If you start with your own blank, you're pretty much able to design however you want to do it. And as you can see, it does actually, kind of like PowerPoint, it actually puts some stuff in there for you to work with. And you can just double click on it, it becomes active, and up at the top are all the tools that you would use if you were doing this as a word processor. You've got your type sizes. Make sure as you slide up and down, and actually you can see it change. Kind of cool that way. As it slides up and down, make sure you click on the one that you want it to be. And then down here, you can start working with pictures that you want to put into it. Notice over here that you've got a whole bunch of photos. And what you can do is just type in and do a search. If you don't find it, don't freak out. You can look for it in other ways, or you can just simply go out and look for it on the web and just drag the pictures in. It's not hard to do. Let's go here and look at uploads, because this is where, frankly, it all lives. Now, did you catch that? If you go here and look under uploads, you will find tons and tons of examples of where people have put in, see, there's a SAMR chart right there. I can drag it over and drop it in. There's TPAC in here. There's a TPAC. So as you can see, you have lots and lots of resources. That's under uploads. You're going to make sense of all of this. You're going to make sure that you save it as you work your way along. And then when you're ready, you're going to share it. It wants you to give it a name. I'm just going to say test. I'll call it test 2 because I've made so many of these. And I'm going to say okay. And it wants to know who can see it. You must make it public. Just like that. And when you get done with that, there's your link. That link then is what you copy and put in the live text right there in the assignment where it says, copy and paste the URL of your infographic here. And that's it. You know, in other words, your work in terms of synthesizing what you think TPAC and SAMR have in common and how they're different, all of that is done in the infographic. You don't have to do anything in the live text. Now, it's different for the TPAC. In the TPAC, you're basically finding an example of a classroom that you like as a TPAC model, an example. You're going to copy the link to that video. You are then going to go through and do the observation instrument and the questions about it, which are located right here. In other words, what are they doing? What do we see is going on here? What are the primary learning goals? What do we see happening? And you don't have to go into great detail here. The one that I picked, I think, has to do with kids using technology to look up information on their iPads. Well, there you go. That's what I'm writing here. And then up here under primary learning goals, I think it was reading is what they're looking up. And then you come down here about the influences upon what you have observed in the lesson. Sometimes you can glean this, and other times you can't. Don't worry about saying, I can't really tell if there's anything going on here that influences it. In other words, I don't see that the kids look like they're very sophisticated with the technology. It looks like it's a class for special needs kids, etc., etc., etc. You get the idea. And then you come down here, and you're going to highlight the areas that you feel represent your scoring. And then, as I said, you can bold that so that I understand that you've actually looked at it and thought about it. Okay, we're winding up here on this first module in the asynchronous version of EDAP 688. I hope as we do these that they're going to be complete enough for you to understand the content and then for you to follow through on the ideas that you're being asked to demonstrate. Make sure that you look through these folders. Make sure that you take your time in looking at especially the videos that are here. Now, one of the things that I will do in this final product is when I have this posted out to YouTube, I'm going to go in and do some post-production within YouTube. And within the instruction in the lecture, I will put links in there that will take you out to videos. Like I'll give you the video link that would take you to the entire presentation done by Punya and Kohler that you saw just little tiny snippets of. But I'll also do the same thing with SAMR. So if within watching the lecture, if you want to jump in and watch those things and not have to quit and go into the module in Blackboard, you can do it there as well. All right, congratulations. You have sat through almost an hour's worth of video. According to my clock down here, we are at 54 minutes and 10 and counting seconds. I want to congratulate you on being a part of this new idea. I need your feedback, and you can do that by texting me at 502-457-2937. Let me know if you feel like the amount of material that was lectured about and demonstrated was enough for you to be able to complete the activities that are outlined in the modules. These modules will be posted every Friday for the next 4 weeks. So the next module will be next Friday. This will be the first one, and they will all be pretty much in the same mold. Remember, be careful when you're working within these different reflection papers. They represent the different modules, and as you complete them, make sure that you are saving, but you are not saving and finishing them. Now, if you accidentally do that, just shoot me a text message, and I can go into the live text, and I can basically send you back the assignment so that you can start on it again. All right, that's it. We have 5 minutes to go before it's an hour. I am not going to do that to you. And as I said, I hope you're enjoying this. Let me know your questions and your comments.